All right, I think 9:02 is a fair time to get started. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see some familiar faces here. I've gone through the series of 4 workshops that we've done to make it to this point where we start looking at some of the tools that we have at our disposal through Oakland University, some of the generative AI tools. The tools that we're going to look at today are Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, and Google Notebook LM. These were tools that were, I don't want to say gifted to us, but they became a part of the core services of Google and Microsoft. So there was really no way for it to stop these tools from showing up in our Google app tray or in our Microsoft Office accounts there as well. And I'm okay with it because these tools, unlike, say, if you go use ChatGPT or your own version of Gemini, these tools that I'm going to show today are the institutional options that we have that have more data protections. They will have limits, so they're not ideal for larger scale research or larger amounts of data. But for getting started and for having a protected environment for you or for students to do some exploration, it really is a good starting point and better than anything that we've had up until August 1st when these services were released. So as a reminder, I'm Dan Arnold, Director of Support and Innovation for ELIS and Provost Fellow for AI for this academic year. We're going to be discussing Gemini, Copilot, and Notebook LM here this morning, and I'm going to start advancing the slides. So far, for those of you who have been on this journey over the last couple of weeks, we started with some of the foundational concepts of what is generative AI, what isn't generative AI. From there, we moved into some of the components for crafting effective prompts. We use the RAFT format, which is role, audience, format, tone, to help you narrow down to get the information that you need faster rather than simple prompts that may give you parts of the information. And then on Monday, we explored responsible AI use and talked about ethics behind it. I know there's a lot of intellectual property rights concerns, copyright concerns, but there's also data protection and data privacy concerns. On top of that, when we look at the entire institution, we want to make sure that we're not opening ourselves up to potential data leakage or cybersecurity risks. So there's a lot of things to consider when starting to explore these tools. And as a fun saying, it's like you wouldn't use a hammer to drive a screw. I mean, you can, but it's going to be increasingly frustrating, especially if you're going into a board. It's going to be very difficult. So when we go through these, each AI tool or assistant is going to have its own strengths or maybe ideal use cases. It's not, say, like going in and doing a web search on Google. Everybody, Google has become a verb, right? It's a product that became a verb. Or Zoom, you might say Zoom when you actually mean some kind of video conferencing or Teams. They all have their different strengths, weaknesses, uses. You may find different strengths or weaknesses or preferences in the tools that you use, and that's totally fine. These are very like personal type choices, and we each find value in different tools for different reasons. So just as a quick overview, many of you may be familiar with this, but Gemini, Copilot, those are large language models. And large language models are very good at broad type of things. They're not really as specialized as, say, a chatbot, like a customer support chatbot on Amazon or any other website where you're maybe purchasing goods. Those are AIs that have a very specific purpose. They do this thing, they maintain this tone, they produce output in a certain way. A large language model like Gemini can be broadly used for a number of different things. It can be used for creative work, research assistant. I use it to help draft documents, draft reports, just to start off. One of the things that I've often struggled with throughout my life and career is certainly not talking, but maybe getting that, getting started writing something or getting the first version of something down on paper. I will overthink it to the point where I've got smoke billowing out of my ears, and that's stressful. It makes me anxious. I don't like that. So I'll often have an idea of what I want, and I can craft that idea, put this into a large language model that helps me get started faster. Now, do I just take what it spits out and use it blindly? No, absolutely not. There's multiple versions of edit or multiple rounds of editing that go through to version anything before I release it as an assignment or as a report or as an email as a product. I do a fair amount of editing with that as well. So tools like Gemini, Copilot, that broad application makes them very appealing for a number of different reasons. Google NotebookLM, which is another tool that became available to us on August 1st, is slightly different. It uses the power of a large language model in that it can process large amounts of information, synthesize it for you, help provide insights, but it's doing it based simply off of the documentation that you've given it. And we'll do examples of all these as we move through, but it uses essentially retrieval augmented generation. You may have heard of RAG. RAG is essentially, it uses a large language model, but only on the information that you've given it. It's meant to reduce hallucinations and try and build more confidence in the output that it's generating. And any response it gives you to any question you may ask, it sources it from the document. So you can have more confidence. You can look up the document that you gave it, the output that it was providing, and source it directly back to the document that it used, which I think is a very helpful tool in just reassuring and building confidence that we're on the right path for a good answer. So Gemini, it's very conversational. Natural language processing is very powerful in that it can understand you. It's more conversational. It can do a wide range of tasks. I say get creative with it, see what it can do. And since it's right there in our Google applications, it'll be easy to find. If you go into your Oakland email and hit the 9 square menu in the upper right, you can find Gemini there. You can find Notebook there as well. So these tools like Gemini, ChatGPT is another large language model, Claude, Perplexity, Grok, there's a bunch of them that do different things and are better for one reason or another. But they are great for brainstorming and for generating summaries of content as well. So I'm going to jump over into a version of Gemini. So pardon me as I do a little screen jumping from one app to the other. I'm going to have it act as a marketing professional and draft 5 catchy slogans for an AI literacy workshop. What I like about this fairly basic prompt still is that it has the AI acting in a specific role. You are a marketing professional. That's going to help it filter out information on, physics, chemistry, graphic design. You're telling it more so the type of response, the type of information that you're looking for. I have told it I want 5 catchy slogans rather than just saying draft catchy slogans. Maybe it gives me a list of 100. Now I've told it essentially how many I want it to output, and I've told it what I want it to be. Very specific for an AI literacy workshop. So I'm going to take this, I will copy and paste it over, and I'm going to share a different screen. Let's do this one here. So here we are in the Oakland University version of Gemini. And I'm just going to drop this in right here. Now we've got a couple of options. From the menu, here, 2.5 flash, good for all-around help. You also have a pro reasoning model that's good for math, code, or maybe deeper analysis. Perhaps you explore these menus to find guided learning, deep research, Canvas. We'll look at those in a moment. But we get to this prompt here. Let's check out our output. It validates you. That's a great task. It's always so happy to heap on the praise as we go along here. I just like to be mindful of that because it can be very encouraging, even though perhaps it's giving you bad information or maybe you've not given it a full prompt. It just says, this is fantastic. So I know a strong slogan needs to be concise, highlight the benefit, and be memorable. I did not use any of these slogans in creating these workshops, but don't just watch AI happen, understand it. AI is your new coworker, learn the language. These are pretty catchy. Future-proof your skills, get AI literate. Beyond the hype, unlock the power of AI. So it's interesting. It's giving some perspective on what they're looking at here as a marketing professional. These folks, different angles, empowerment, relevance, necessity, clarity. I think it's interesting that it's following up with additional information. And oftentimes in something like Gemini, ChatGPT, or Copilot, it's going to ask a follow-up question. Would you like me to draft a brief, compelling workshop description based on your favorite slogan? Yeah, I typed a 7 on accident. Yes. Oh, so it's going off of slogan number 3 and trying to give me some kind of workshop description here. Now, I do think it's interesting that it's giving me some learning objectives here. It's following up with, I can also draft all these things here. It's trying to keep you engaged and trying to move you along through a process. And when I think of in my own teaching how I could use a tool like this to help a student run through an iterative process like this, I think of it, along the lines, I'm not saying it's a one-to-one comparison, but in writing a draft and engaging in a conversation, in editing and revising and trying to refine that. I think this is very interesting. Now, what these outputs lack, even though I told it I want you to act as a marketing professional, it is still not a marketing professional. It can be very convincing in the information that it provides. Perhaps you'll use this and edit it and it works just fine. But the part that I know I'm lacking in my own knowledge is that I am not a marketing professional, that there are professionals out there that may have questions of, is this hitting the right audience? Is this, using the correct tone for that? And though we could have the AI do that, I still would rather work with somebody in UCM or somebody who does a lot of program development to understand, am I hitting the points that I need to? What am I missing here? Because inevitably there may be things that are important that the large language model like Gemini may overlook. And I'll often say that we look at these outputs as not a replacement for human expertise, but just as a call for the need for additional expertise in any of these outputs that we use. And that's a critical point to really address with students as well, is that it is very easy to bypass with this, but what have we lost? That critical thinking aspect, and then we just have more AI generated off of more AI. I think that's an interesting example here. I am going to do another example and ask it to summarize for me. So I want to find a document, probably a fairly long one. Oops, I just closed it out. Well, before I even do any kind of summaries, does anybody have any questions or comments that they'd want to raise based on what we've seen so far? You can unmute yourself, raise your hand, throw it in the chat, whatever you prefer. Nothing? No? Okay. That's perfectly fine. Let me pull up a document that I'm using in one of my current classes right now. I am going to grab an academic article that I found for the course that I'm using right now. And I think I got a couple of my folks in here in this class or in this session that are in this class. So I'm going to take an article on motivation. That I'm using for a course right now, actually for this week, so you guys don't use this in your assignments right now. But I have a very, this isn't a terribly long academic article, maybe 10 to 13 pages, not long in the grand scheme of things. But now I have the ability to summarize this article and provide an abstract. For those of you who have made concerns about copyright in adding this article out here, a couple of things. This is an article that was publicly available on the internet. And it's safe to assume that anything that's publicly available on the internet has probably been ingested into the training data of many of these machines. Do I agree with that? That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that if it's out there and it's publicly available on the internet, in most cases in AI, it's going to be slightly more fair game. Now, anything behind a login, say information in Moodle or in an email, those are the types of things we don't want to necessarily put into a general AI system. Further, OU's version of Gemini, even though being the free version, does have data protections in place. So there's already contracts, agreements in place if there's any kind of security breach or unauthorized use. We do have the same level of protections with this version of Gemini that we would for our Gmail, for our Google Drive, and our documents that we use here. So with this long article, it gave me an abstract. It summarized the article for me. Okay, hey, this is great. It's giving me some of the core findings, mechanisms of goal setting. Having read a fair amount of organizational development literature written in the 1800s and early 1900s, anybody who's gone down that road knows that the written word was much different back then and written in ways that was to be more accessible for the educated class at that time. We still see some of that, very verbose, very wordy articles. And I see these as opportunities, these tools as opportunities to break that into more common language for people to understand at varying levels. For example, now summarize for an 8th grader. If I can spell it. We can now take the ability to summarize and make it specific for a specific audience. The secret to getting stuff done. It's going to change the tone of how we summarize these things and make it more accessible and break it down into simpler terms. Now, for me, I more so want the student to get the core information from this. I would have them run through this prompt, provide the output that it gave me. Now provide me your own thoughts on this particular article and the summarization. That could be a potential forum post. That could be a reflective paper. I often err toward using reflective papers because we have to put our own thoughts, our own experiences into that rather than not. So Chad Bowsley says, I love asking AI to explain it like I am a 5-year-old. Oftentimes for me, that's the best way to go to help me understand it. And Wendy says, what's the difference between going to the 9-square menu and choosing Gemini and just Googling it in Chrome and using it via the web browser in that way? You could go to gemini.google.com, and that's fine if you log in with your Oakland University credentials or select your OU credentials, or maybe you're logged into your OU Chrome account in your browser. It should route you there. You'll know because it'll have the Oakland University logo up here on the right. If you're using your own personal one, you won't see the Oakland University logo and your fancy word picture right next to it either. So there's really no difference. It's just different ways to get to the same thing. Any questions or comments on this? Lots of red microphones and pictures staring at me.
Dan, if I'm not logged into my OU account, is there a difference when I use Gemini? So maybe I'm using my personal Gmail.
Yeah, there will be a difference potentially. The differences will be more so if you have the Pro version in a personal account. You'll have higher usage limits. You won't really bump your head into those usage limits as you would with the free versions. You may see more robust answers to that. I could potentially show you the difference jumping over into Gemini Pro if you like. Let me pull up a version. Some of the differences you'll notice as well is since we're on the education version of Gemini, it isn't integrated across your Google Drive into your Gmail. That's where I see a lot of really cool, powerful things happening with it. You'll also notice at the bottom that Oakland University chats aren't used to improve our models. Gemini can make mistakes, all that hedging language there. But let's try the same prompt that I gave it. Let me switch my screens and go over to the Pro version. That's the one. So you'll see here now, I've got the same prompt, summarize this article and provide an abstract. Here's the Pro version. Up here, you notice it doesn't have the Oakland University logo next to it. It still has access to the different models, the different tools, etc. It does say Gemini can make mistakes, so double check it. So it is giving us a lot more information here. Motivators of goals, effects, great. This answer is seemingly much longer. Remember, I did not give it instruction on how long I wanted this output to be. Here's an abstract that goes with it as well. And say now explain it to a middle schooler. We'll go with an even broader range here. Imagine you're trying to level up in a video game or get better at a sport. Okay. Trying to be relatable. I'm the cool uncle. But it is also sourcing information from the article as we go along. You may see these links here after you put a prompt in that are very helpful in showing you where to source that information. So it is using the file that I gave it. How goals kick you into action. Oh, that's very fun. In my opinion, this is going to just another level in explaining things. I will say through machine learning, the large language models get to know more about you. That's why they have you log into specific accounts. They can learn more about what you're doing, your style, the things that you're up to. And this version of Gemini Pro probably knows me in a different way than the OU version does, simply because I use the OU version more so for work-related things, not my personal stuff. Really as a kind of my own social experiment to contain all my work things in work appropriate tools. One thing I do like to share about Gemini is if you go into the settings and look at the activity, through here you can see my activity and I can get details. I can say it says when I started it, the output, what I prompted up here, and the output that went with it. I like this feature because for me, as a student, if there's an accusation of academic misconduct, I can go into my Gemini account and I can pull this information. You as a faculty member cannot have UTS or anybody provide these logs to you, but it is one mechanism that students and faculty have to just track what has happened in there. Again, no, this is not being monitored by UTS. They're monitoring for cybersecurity threats, not for if you're looking to learn more. So that's pretty great. Let's see, a couple of questions in chat. Is there any history for activities in these tools? And this, I think, is probably the best way to track that. It's similar to the Moodle logs, in that Moodle will track the things that you're clicking on, which has been very helpful for a number of reasons. Gemini, again, the Pro version of Gemini, or just a non-OU approved tool of that, might not have this logging in here, and it's a big transparency and ethics concern for me, is that you should be able to show your work. This will help you show your work through here. Jump back over into here. Is the search history saved with the OU version? Michelle, I hope I answered your question by showing that as well.
Sorry, I typed it in at the same time.
No, these are good questions. Get them out. But if that is to your satisfaction, then excellent. You can actually share and export to docs as well. That's another option. And one thing that I like about this is that by exporting it to docs, you can also go in and view the version history of a document. So if a student did any of the editing after that, you would know, imported from an HTML file. View the original. Look at all that HTML. Nobody wants to read that. But it is nice that you can see, okay, this was imported. This is everything that came through from that particular chat. And if the student were to go in and modify anything, or if you were to go in and modify anything, you can see through that versioning history what has been adjusted and when that was adjusted. So it does preserve the original HTML, which isn't always, the preferred format, but it will at least signify that this was something imported from a Gemini chat. I think I will move over and look more at the Copilot things. Let's see if I want to check the chat.
Quick question regarding proofreading. I tried to paste something, but it gave me a message that the image was not a text. But I literally just pasted, like I put Control C on the text, put Control B, and it didn't work.
Let's see here. If you want Gemini to proofread something, just try pasting something that has to proofread, but this says it's entirely black. I can't read any text from proofread. That's interesting. I've not had as much trouble with screenshots or images and uploading it and asking it to proofread. Was it a picture of something or was it a picture of text?
It wasn't really a picture. I tried to just like copy the text and paste it in the where you put the prompt for Gemini.
Hmm?
Maybe I should upload the actual thing, but it was just like a line. I just typed something just to see if it would like proofread something, but it didn't it allowed me to copy paste. Like when I pasted it, it gave me this message.
Possible if you're trying to copy and paste from a PDF, that can be a little tricky.
It was
Copy.
from a Word document. I literally just like picked a paragraph from a Word document and pasted.
Let's take a look after the session and see what happened there and try and troubleshoot what's going on because I think that's pretty interesting. I'd like to see exactly what was happening.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that happens to me a lot. If you're able to just upload directly, that's preferred rather than copy paste. A little bit of troubleshooting goes a long way. And we can do that after the session's done. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to jump over to Copilot for a little bit here. Copilot, admittedly, this is one I don't use a whole heck of a lot because I got comfortable with ChatGPT and Gemini, and we often fall back into our old habits, right? Those tools that we like them for a reason. But coming out here and messing around and playing with Copilot, there's some really cool functionality in here. And I believe that our Microsoft tools might get underutilized here on campus because we're so Google centric and our Gmail and Docs and all that. There are a lot of really cool Microsoft tools out there that you can access through your Oakland University account, including chat. So Copilot Chat is going to be very similar to what we had just seen. We can upload files, images, we can add stuff, we can attach cloud files. It's going to be good at summarizing large amounts of information or perhaps drafting documents, summarizing documents. We've seen some of the cool features there. I'm not going to go more into how to use that large language model that way. We already have it. And just so you know that you can enable GPT-5 where it's using more ChatGPT-5's current model for that, or you can stick with Copilot's native model as well. Where I've been seeing more interesting application in using Copilot is in creating things. You got Word documents, Excel files, PowerPoint. I created a PowerPoint, a very brief one, the other day when you open up the applications. Here's one that I created based off of a simple prompt. Here was just give me a presentation on Lewin's change theory. Probably not the most beautiful of presentations, but as a starting point, I struggle with creating PowerPoints. I am, very generic in how they come up. But with PowerPoint now having Copilot enabled, you can use it to help make design choices. For example, off of a blank presentation, you have a Copilot here. Look at all these beautiful templates. So Copilot will coach you along as well. Brainstorm topic ideas for a presentation on, let's see here. I could call out on the class for a topic idea. Does anybody want to throw in the text or in the chat box? What do we want? A topic, a presentation on.
How to use AI in assignments for students.
Thank you, Chad.
You're welcome.
All right, understanding the AI basics, AI for research and information gathering, AI in writing and editing. Going through, it's giving me a pretty quick outline. Very helpful. Would you like me to turn these into a structured slide outline for your presentation or create a visual thing? Yeah, we could do that. Let's see what it's going to do for us. Analyzing. Very proud of my reading abilities. This functionality wasn't available throughout all of the Microsoft tools when they first released Copilot, so it's interesting to see that it is now a part of it here. It's working, it's thinking. I wonder. What if we just put it in Copilot? What will happen? I can create a PowerPoint file for you. Here's what I suggest for the structure. Okay. Now it's asking me, would you like me to create a PowerPoint file with this outline and some design elements, or just provide detailed slide content here for you to copy into PowerPoint? Also, do you want the tone to be informative for teachers, students, or a mixed audience? Very simple, yes, and for a mixed audience. We'll let Copilot go to work here for a second. I'll have my coffee. I know one thing for me in developing content is being that I'm not a skilled PowerPoint presenter, or you see these beautiful presentations that are created and I sit there and wonder how many weeks it would take me to put that together. To have tools that can help me generate presentations fairly quickly, right at my fingertips, I would say relatively quickly, is something that I think is a tremendous feature. And again, if you have your own outlines or develop your own outlines and want to share and are willing to share that outline in something like Copilot, again, that has institutional data protections, it's not training, it's large language model based on what you put in there. If you have your outline that you've created and you really like that and you're comfortable with it, you can provide the outline in Copilot to start getting structured there. Verify the link. Unable to verify the link. That's okay. That's just Oakland being secure. Now here we are, a starting point for a PowerPoint presentation. We got some nice title slides here. It breaks it down in segments. And perhaps there's things that you want to edit in here. You absolutely have the ability to go in and edit and change things around as you see fit. But for me, as someone who is a self-admitted, I get a lot of anxiety in creating PowerPoints. This is a tremendous first start. Or just to help me get started, it's got images on here. Yes, these are AI generated images that it's using throughout here, but I can elect not to use those images. I can change things around to see how I get fit. But as a starting point for developing PowerPoints, this is tremendous. If you're a faculty member, does Gemini do something similar with Google Slides? It kind of. In our version of Gemini, it's not linked throughout our entire workspace. You can maybe create a slide, or in Gemini or in Slides, you can create a slide at a time. I'm seeing better results in using Copilot to generate the first drafts of my presentations. I actually use an AI, a Gen AI presentation software. I pay about 20 bucks a month for it. And I'm considering just coming over to this version of Copilot and using that and saving the $20 a month on it, because while they are visually appealing and tremendous, I think that these PowerPoint slides are enough for me to feel comfortable in getting started. Does Copilot connect to Google Docs, Slides, and Sheets? Not that I've seen. I have not tried linking that, but in my experience, Microsoft and Google don't always like to play nicely in each other's sandboxes, nor does Apple with Google and such, but I think that's worthy of looking into. And if you like, we could take that same question and ask over here. Does not natively the way it does with here, but here are some options. You can get a connector to go through there. Save the PowerPoint to your Google Drive. Yep, that's another one. The easiest way to connect to Copilot is office.oakland.edu, where you'll use your Oakland University credentials to log in to Copilot. You'll have access to the full suite of Microsoft tools out there as well. So another option out here in Create, you can do workbooks, forms, but I thought that this teaching tool was fairly interesting. This is something I just stumbled upon more recently as well. So you can do it for curriculum planning, homework and assessments, study aids, developing flashcards, rubrics. Very cool. But if I want to do some lesson planning, I'm going to say organizational change. My grade level is higher education. The language I want is English. I want a lesson plan on Lewin's change theory. I love this one. Starting at its origin and concluding with current theory. You can add additional content if you like, if you want to feed a specific article in. And you can go anywhere from 5 to 180 minutes on this as well. I'm just going to do a 45-minute one. I got to the teaching tool off of this menu here on the side, and I hit teach. So draft 1. It's generating the lesson plan. It's got an overview. Now I often teach more graduate level, so this might not be a graduate level appropriate. It might be just higher ed in general. Maybe it's 100, 200, or 1,000, 2,000 level. But it is helping me with objectives. And if I'm using a specific document or perhaps content that I've developed, that's even more encouraging that you can develop learning objectives off of that. Using good words, explain, describe, compare, apply, things that are measurable. It's even giving you a material list, a projector and computer for multimedia presentations, handouts, case study packets. Ooh, we could use a large language model to help develop case studies. I think our instructional design team is doing stuff like that already. But now it's starting to develop a timeline. If I'm doing a professional presentation and I've only got 45 minutes plus time for question and answers, this is a really helpful way for me to structure how much time to spend on each section so that we're not 20 minutes into the presentation and I'm only through the first 5 minutes of content. Having this is more comforting for me because I like to track the time and chunk things out in smaller bits here. And if you were to say I want this to be 90 minutes instead of 45 minutes, it will give you more content, it will expand and give you more time as well. But I like that it sets an expectation of how much time to spend on each of these particular sections. You can also add more information in there if you want to add additional content. You can do more enhancements and editing over here using Copilot as well. And then when you're done, you can change something here. Let's say make it a 60-minute presentation. And I do like that it's keeping versions of the drafts. It's not letting me go back because it's still generating this lesson plan. But I can go back to here. Here's the 45-minute one. Here's what I did. Here's what I asked it to do. Here's what it did in response. So now we're at 60 minutes, organizational change, university level. Now we're doing a little bit more time on the origins and unpacking, going deeper into the critiques and applying that within your own organizations. So an interesting way to quickly, say, even take an article or take information that you've already developed to come up with a lesson plan on that. And again, you don't have to use it if you don't want to. If you're uncomfortable with it, if it's not right for you, you don't have to use it. But for getting started with quickly developing content in a very targeted way, I'm finding that Copilot has got a lot of functionality to assist in that particular lift. Any questions on Copilot before I jump over to Google Notebook LM? Or any comments, discussion? Todd.
Yeah, I saw one from my colleague that I was also curious about, which is what is the easiest method for us to connect to Copilot? I mean, do we just do it? Do we just go to our computer, open up PowerPoint, and then there we are?
I believe it's office.oakland.edu. And when you
Oh,
click on that, you'll be directed to log into your Oakland account, look for anything that might say single sign-on or through your work account. You'll be able to find and use your Oakland University credentials to log in. That's what will get you access to OneDrive, to really all those tools out there that are part of Microsoft.
okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of cool things out there that, they're just as shareable as anything that's in a Google Doc, but since we've underutilized Microsoft and relied so heavily on the Google versions of tools, which are great, it's not a knock on them. It's easy to forget we've got access to all of these other Microsoft tools as well.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. Could you please send us the seminar's recording? These recordings will all be available on the eLIS Workshop eSpace as well. And I'm looking to have them on a YouTube channel that'll be more publicly available as well. But these recordings will be available. You do not see Copilot in the said page. Did you log into that, Mona? We can talk about that afterwards. When you're logged in, okay, let's go to office.oakland.edu. I swear it was there before. Okay. Copilot. So there's regular Copilot. Let me double check that because that's how I've always got to it, is just by logging into office.oakland.edu and seeing Copilot there. No results for Copilot. Interesting. So when I clicked on the menu up here, you can get to it from Bing, yeah. You can explore all your apps. When I did that, it just popped up. They're over there. It mail says it's integrated into our computer as a software. I use an Apple, so it's not directly integrated. If you're using Windows, it's possible that it's integrated directly into your Windows 11 as well. But yeah, that's interesting. I've always just accessed it from office.oakland.edu, and I've had it pulled up on my computer for a while now, so that could be it. Thank you for pointing that out to me. I want to have a better route to get to that. Any other questions about Copilot at this point? Because the real fun one that I really like is NotebookLM. This is again through Google. You can log in through notebooklm.google.com, or it's in the 9 square menu. You'll find it up here. I have mine moved up to the top along with Gemini, but many of you may find it toward the very bottom as well. I use NotebookLM pretty extensively now and I'm using it in different ways. I think it's a great tool for a lot of various reasons, but I want to show you just some of the functionality that goes in here. This is a super exciting example of the Oakland University data security policy that I created for others as well. And I said that this uses retrieval augmented generation. So any of the answers that it's going to come up with are going to be based strictly off of the information that I've provided to it over here. Again, that's a way to try and reduce hallucinations and try and give more credible answers. You also have this studio over here with different options that can create an AI podcast, a video overview, mind maps. There's a whole slew of different things that it can do. And I want to make sure, I'm going to reshare my screen, and I want to do it with sound this time so I can share some of that. I want to turn on my headphones as well. As I go to share this one. Again, this is more of a super boring example, but I do use these with some effect in my courses that I teach. With the video overview, these can be generated with just a few minutes time. I like to look at these before I just share them with students to make sure the information is accurate as well. A couple of issues with the video overview is that you cannot edit them and that they do not have closed caption, so that they're fairly inaccessible in that way. But from an accessibility standpoint, we're providing multiple ways for students to access the content in meaningful ways. So maybe the video version isn't going to work for somebody. Perhaps they just access the article from the left-hand side. Perhaps they use the audio overview as well. But for simple concepts, or maybe breaking down a complex report or a long paper with a lot of jargon in it, this can be a helpful way to do that.
So, from the very first time you searched for Oakland University, all the way to the day you toss that graduation cap in the air, you're creating a digital story. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at what that story says about you, who actually gets to read it, and most importantly, what your role is in writing it. Let's dive in. You know, every single click, every form you fill out, every login, it all becomes part of your digital life here at the university. But have you ever stopped to think, what are the rules for all this data? And who's making sure those rules are actually being followed? Well, that is exactly what we're here to figure out.
So it does create interesting content. It can be very, robot-y sounding, or it has the, the AI sound to it. But I like these as ways to maybe introduce a complex topic, or maybe a complex document, a complex report, and that I can get a 6 to 7 minute video to help set that up. Now you've done the video, read the article. Maybe you have some follow-up questions for that particular article. We can go and start to do the interactive podcast.
Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic that touches almost every corner of our lives, especially when we interact with institutions. We're talking about the intricate world of digital privacy, data security, and how organizations make sure everything from your personal info to, say, their software licenses is handled correctly.
It really is a landscape teeming with policies and procedures. And, they're all designed fundamentally to build trust and prevent missteps in our very digital world. So our mission today is to take this stack of...
So it's interesting. This one's going to go 20 minutes into the subject, and you can actually start to interact with it too. I'll see if it'll allow me to join.
Oh, hey there. How can we help?
Could you explain more about property management to me and how that relates to my role as an administrative professional? It doesn't like my microphone feed right now. Well, that wasn't a very good demo of that feature. I think it's confused because Zoom is using my microphone and another thing is trying to use my microphone too. I like that interactive podcast because I can interrupt it to try and get more information out of it. Again, it's sourcing everything out of the documents that you've given it as well. I also like the mind map feature in that it offers different ways to explore and engage with the content. Uh, so if I go into procurement, now it's going to start giving me information over here, and we'll see how it sources the documents. But you can also see the mind map is expanding as well. So we can go further down the rabbit hole if we like and see, what we've explored. What I like about this here, again, it's sourcing the content. It's making a claim, but now it's also saying exactly where that information came from. It's meant to, again, breed confidence in using these specific tools and sourcing it exactly where it's pulling that information from. So it can take documents that are otherwise complex, long reports, or perhaps maybe a lot of rules, regulations, and policies, and it makes those documents interactive. And unlike a tool like Gemini or Copilot, it's not going out to everything that's out on the web and not knowing where it's pulling from in generating that information. It's pulling strictly from the information that you've given it. Can it use more abstract art in its video overviews? Not that I've seen. You're kind of left to Google in their ways to do that. So do they have to be in document or links work the same? Let me show you. If you go to create a new notebook, it's going to ask you to upload sources right away. You don't have to have all of your sources ready to go right from the start. You can upload files directly. You can do it from your Google Drive. You can add links from websites, YouTube videos. You can copy and paste text over into it. So there's a lot of different ways to get started. So let's take that PDF that I used previously in Gemini. Again, this is an environment that has OU data protections on it. So I'm not as worried. And again, this is a document that is publicly available. I'm not as worried about copyright on things that are publicly available. I'm sure others may not share that same feeling to me, but again, if it's out there and it's not behind a login, it most likely has large language models have access to the content already. So we've got here, it's pretty simple. When you come to create an audio overview, you can do a deep dive, which I typically do. I want it to be 20 minutes or so. You can do a brief, you can do a critique, you can have a debate, you can control the length. You can change what it is focusing on. So maybe you just want to have it, you have this article, but you want it to focus on very specific things. You can put more controls over the content and the length and the style of those videos, whereas maybe the art style that's being used, you don't have as much say on that as well. Can you store YouTube videos in NotebookLM in case they get deleted from YouTube itself? No, you cannot, because it's still going to be referencing the YouTube link. It's not downloading the MP4 file from YouTube. It's just referencing that specific link. Good question. So you can make these shorter. You can make them longer if you like. I typically stick with the deep dive. I go by default and generate content from there. But if I want to do another one that's a shorter critique of it, critique the opening paragraph, you can try and give it more focused instructions in there as well. I can generate that. The mind map, you just have to click on that to generate it. The video overviews, you can do an explainer, which I really like. The brief, I don't like as much because it just moves so quickly and it just, it misses so much depending on what you're looking to do. But these videos, again, I'm seeing them usually in the 5 to 7, 8 minute max mark for generating that content. Your visual style here, You can get a little bit more abstract there if you like, but again, these are going to be all AI generated images for when you're doing that. You can store YouTube videos and use it to save them, though. Thanks, Chad. Yes, thanks for that. If we build something interactive in NotebookLM, is there a way to track students doing the activity? I'm not sure I understand how well it works. I can share this with my learners. The tracking in the analytics, it's a little different because you can add people individually in through here. There's my people who I usually chat with popping up and share it that way. One limitation that I have with Notebook, and it's the reason why I use my personal version, is that in the version that we have of Notebook, sharing them isn't as easy. In the pro version that I have, I can just copy the link over to Moodle that way. And I do that because it does have more analytics. I can see if people are interacting, with it more. The way I'm using it in my current classes is more so as a way to guide student thought and discussion, to help them craft thoughts, help them respond to forums, just a little bit more structure on that particular article and document. So this is going to be helpful in, I want you to watch this video. Now let's have this discussion. Now you have more ways to interact with that information after that discussion if you have more follow-up questions or if you want to engage in different ways. There's a myriad of different ways you could potentially use this tool, including if students wanted to take information and create a quiz. You can do basic number of questions, level of difficulty. There are flashcards. You can generate flashcards off of content. You can also have different types of reports, whether it's a study guide, a briefing document. There are different ways that students could potentially use that information, or that you could use that information to develop study guides, to develop additional content as well. And again, these are all suggestions. These aren't anything that would ever be required. And I think that they're interesting tools for us to start having more discussions on how we could incorporate this into our work, how we can engage students in using these particular types of tools. We're limited by creativity and oftentimes and comfort. And if you get to a point in using these tools where you're just not quite comfortable, you don't know what to do next, stop. Stop and reach out, ask, talk with your colleagues and see what they're doing as well. With the pro version, if you tell them to do a quiz or summer activity, you can see which students are interacting with the content. I have not used it for quizzing, so I don't have a good answer for you on that. I typically would say use the Moodle quiz because it's going to log students each time they go to a different question and make a response. There's just more accountability. The quiz would be more so a practice quiz, interacting with the content that way. Thank you. Oh, you're very welcome, Michelle. Todd, do you have a question?
Yeah, Dan. I didn't see how you got from the general screen of goal setting and task motivation to being able to be more specific in what you're wanting. Like you had those things where you were trying to tell it like how long you wanted it or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
How did you do that?
So you've got different slide out menus here. Here's where you can add your sources or look for additional sources on here as well. You can look at the source here, but in the studio, if this part is popped out, if you click on these pencil icons, you can see which ones have more flexibility on that. So with the audio overviews, by clicking on that pencil,
okay.
no, thanks for asking that, Todd, because if you just click on this button, it's just going to use the default settings and get going after it. Clicking on that pencil is where you're going to start to have access to those different options.
Okay, that's what I did. Okay, thanks.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you for that, Mail. What I'll say is just, at some point in our lives, I like saying that the 4-letter word went from play to work. And I encourage you to find ways to play with these tools in your personal lives and find value in them there. And then critically think of ways we can start to incorporate that into our workflows to enhance the learning, to be a supplement, to push students. And will there be bad actors and students who use and over rely on AI? Of course there will be. The ingenuity of our students knows no limits, including how far they'll go to sometimes avoid work. And it's a blanket statement. It doesn't apply to all students. I would encourage you to play around with these, find ways to engage your students, engage with your students in these tools, and be critical of them. Don't just accept the first thing it gives you. Find ways to push the limits on these and question. It's what we do here. We don't just accept the first answer. We don't accept the first draft. We don't accept the first response in a Google search. We seek, we dig deeper. We try to get that more meaningful content and interaction from these tools. So I wish you luck in exploring these tools. I will hang around for a few more minutes here. I know that we're just a couple minutes past, and I appreciate you coming and spending some time with me this morning.